The price of groceries is out of control right now. It's worse than ever before. Stop being naive. You know Trump's tariffs are increasing food prices. I advise you to cook the same dish for 2 days. It's the only way to save on water, gas, time. Never before have American families felt the sting of inflation like they do in 2025. Grocery prices are skyrocketing at a pace that feels unreal, forcing people to make impossible choices between essentials. Stories are pouring in of shoppers leaving carts half full because the bill was simply too high, or switching to cheaper and less nutritious food just to survive. Online forums are exploding with angry rants, desperate pleas, and biting sarcasm as people try to process how their daily lives have become so difficult. Every comment reveals a deeper layer of anxiety, from the loss of financial security to the fear that this crisis is far from over. What used to be a mundane chore is now a symbol of economic pain, and Americans are not holding back their emotions. In this video, we are taking a close look at the raw, unfiltered reactions that expose how serious the grocery crisis has become. Could it all be linked to Trump's aggressive tax shifts, quietly reshaping the cost of living? Stay with us, the answer may shock you. One viewer commented, "Taking a loan for food? Never. Part of the problem is that a lot of people buy a bunch of junk." This reaction shows frustration with the idea of borrowing money just to afford basic groceries. It feels extreme because food should be something people can cover without going into debt. At the same time, the comment points to another side of the issue. Not every purchase at the store is essential. Many households spend a significant part of their budget on snacks, processed foods, and items that are more about convenience than necessity. When grocery prices keep rising, those extra costs can make it harder to manage the basics like fruits, vegetables, and staples. Still, it's also important to recognize that not all families who struggle with food bills are wasting money. In 2025, the price of everyday essentials has gone up so much that even careful shoppers are feeling squeezed. This comment, while blunt, highlights the tension between personal responsibility and the broader reality of inflation. It opens up a bigger discussion about how much of the problem comes from individual choices and how much comes from the economy making even the basics harder to afford. One viewer commented, "Olive oil $8, I just paid $23 for my virgin olive oil." This comment captures the shock many Americans are feeling at the grocery store in 2025. Olive oil is a common household item, but its price has skyrocketed in recent years. What used to be considered a healthy and affordable choice for cooking has now turned into a luxury item for some families. Paying more than $20 for a single bottle shows how dramatically food inflation has affected even the basics. For people who enjoy cooking at home or rely on olive oil for health reasons, these increases can really change their habits. Some may switch to cheaper alternatives, while others simply cut back altogether. What is striking here is not just the number itself, but the emotional reaction behind it. The surprise and disbelief highlight how quickly prices have jumped in such a short time. This kind of comment resonates with many viewers because everyone has a story about being shocked at the checkout line. It is a reminder that inflation is not just about statistics. It is about real families having to rethink everyday choices, even for something as simple as a bottle of olive oil. One viewer commented, "Crazy 'cause all USA food is just pumped with chemicals too." This comment expresses frustration about the quality of what people are eating. Many shoppers feel that even when they pay higher prices, they are not always getting the fresh, natural products they expect. Concerns about additives, preservatives, and heavily processed ingredients are common in conversations about diet and health. It creates a sense of unfairness. People are spending a significant part of their budget, yet still worry about whether the food they bring home is truly good for them. For families who want healthier options, the challenge is even greater because items labeled organic or natural often come with much higher price tags. The heart of this comment is about trust and value. It shows that cost is only one part of the problem. The other part is confidence in what is actually being consumed. Many Americans feel caught between affordability and health. making grocery shopping more stressful than it used to be. This reaction resonates because it highlights how everyday choices at the store are tied not just to money, but also to long-term well-being. One viewer commented, "Trump has solved the obesity problem in America. Soon everyone will be skinny or even malnourished. Well done, Trump. Thank you for starving us." This comment uses heavy sarcasm to express frustration about the current situation. By framing rising food costs as a so-called solution to obesity, the viewer is pointing out how difficult it has become for ordinary people to afford basic groceries. The mention of malnourishment shows the deeper worry that families are being pushed to cut back not just on extras, but on real essentials. While the words are exaggerated, the emotion behind them is clear. People feel let down and even mocked by how expensive everyday life has become. The reference to leadership adds a political angle, but the core message is about hardship and the fear that more and more people will go without proper nutrition. Sarcastic comments like this spread quickly because they capture both humor and pain in a single line. It is a way for people to vent their anger while also drawing attention to the seriousness of the issue. What seems like a joke on the surface actually reflects very real anxieties about affordability, health, and the struggle to put food on the table. One viewer commented, "High grocery prices has always been a problem for poor people everywhere. Now you know how it feels to be poor." This comment delivers a hard truth that often gets overlooked. For families living with limited income, the struggle to afford food is not something new. It has been a reality for decades. The difference now is that more people outside of poverty are starting to experience that same pressure, which makes the issue harder to ignore. The comment highlights the divide in perspective. What some are only beginning to feel, others have lived with every single day. It can sound harsh, but it brings attention to the fact that rising costs are not hitting everyone equally. Those who were already vulnerable are being pushed into even more difficult situations, while middle-class households are only now realizing how crushing it feels to constantly choose between bills, rent, and food. This reaction serves as a reminder of the broader social impact behind economic changes. It pushes the audience to think about empathy, fairness, and how rising costs expose struggles that many communities have faced quietly for years. One viewer commented, "Americans are feeling a little of what other people in other nations get to feel." This comment brings up an important perspective about global experiences. For a long time, many Americans have been somewhat insulated from the extreme financial pressures that people in other parts of the world face daily. In many countries, high food costs, limited access to essentials, and constant economic uncertainty are an everyday reality. The point being made here is that the current struggle is giving Americans a small glimpse of that hardship. It does not mean the situations are identical, but it highlights how rising expenses can suddenly make life feel unstable even in a wealthy nation. This perspective also suggests that empathy can grow from shared difficulties. When people in the United States feel what others have long endured, it may help them better understand the challenges faced by communities abroad. The comment may sound blunt, but its underlying message is about awareness and perspective. Hardship is not unique to one country, and sometimes experiencing even a fraction of what others live with can change how people view fairness, privilege, and resilience. One viewer commented, "Americans getting what they voted for." This remark can be read as a reference to leadership choices, including former President Trump. For some people, it suggests that the challenges at the store today are linked to policies set in motion years ago. Supporters of Trump might argue that under his administration, the economy was stronger and prices were more stable, while critics see his influence as part of a larger chain of problems that have built up over time. Either way, the comment reflects frustration and the belief that elections have real consequences for everyday life. By tying current struggles back to voting, it highlights how political decisions are not abstract. They show up in the cost of groceries, rent, and other essentials. The deeper message is about accountability, but also about division. Some Americans see Trump as the answer to economic pain, while others believe his approach contributed to long-term instability. The sharpness of this comment shows how closely tied food prices and politics have become in people's minds. One viewer commented, "The cost of cat food has gone through the roof." This comment shows that rising prices are not just affecting people, but also their pets. For many households, pets are considered part of the family, and feeding them properly is a responsibility that cannot be ignored. When something as simple as cat food becomes much more expensive, it adds another layer of stress to already tight budgets. Owners may find themselves forced to cut back on other essentials or switch to cheaper brands that may not have the same quality. The frustration in this comment reflects how inflation spreads across every corner of daily life, even in places people might not expect. It is not just about the cost of bread, milk, or vegetables. Pet care is part of the household budget too. This reaction resonates because it shows how deeply these price increases reach into ordinary routines. For millions of Americans who own pets, higher costs at the store mean tough choices that affect not only themselves, but also the well-being of the animals they love. One viewer commented, "$11.29 for milk? I remember when I thought $5 was crazy." This comment captures the shock of watching prices climb to levels that once seemed impossible. Milk is a staple in many households, and for decades, it has been a symbol of everyday affordability. When the price moves into double digits, it feels like a breaking point because people remember so clearly when it was much lower. The mention of $5 as once being crazy shows how quickly expectations can change, and how inflation reshapes what people consider normal. This kind of reaction is powerful because it is tied to memory. Shoppers look back and realize how much has changed in only a few years, and that comparison makes today's numbers even harder to accept. The frustration here is not just about one product, but about the feeling that basics are slipping out of reach. It reminds us that rising costs are not abstract figures. They affect items people buy every single week. The disbelief in this comment reflects the way many families feel when they walk down the dairy aisle and face prices they never imagined paying.